Those of you that follow my YouTube videos will know that I'm a medium, and that means I'm a person that has the ability to communicate with the dead, or rather the dead to communicate to me. Because on both sides of the veil, it's a difficult thing to communicate, and I'm going to explain some of the sort of difficulties that we mediums have, and the difficulties the spirit world have of getting through to us. Now, so how does mediumship work? That's a pretty difficult thing for most people to understand. People, sceptical people will say, oh, if you're in touch with the spirit world, you know, get them to give me the lottery numbers and get them to tell me this, that and the other. All these, give us the nuclear formula for this or something like that, you know. Now, that's all well and good, but we're not communicating with the spirit world in the same way that we do here on Earth. Here we communicate with things like words and writing and bodily gestures and all the rest of it. We have a whole complicated material way of talking to one another. But when a spirit communicates with us, they have to do it through the medium's mind. They have to find something in between the material world and the spirit world. They have to connect through a sort of an ether in order to connect to our thoughts. So basically what they're doing is they're impressing their thoughts on my thoughts so that I can pick up enough information to give some what we call proof and evidence of the survival of the human personality, or whatever we call it, after death. So they talk to us through our minds. Now that on the one hand sounds completely crackpot because it could all be from your imagination, but the fact is, as he has a cup of tea, the fact is that the spirit world will impress their thoughts upon ours, and then from my point of view what I have to then learn is to distinguish between what's my thoughts and what are the spirit people's thoughts, you know. Now each medium's different and each medium works differently, but from my point of view the way I see it is that it's like I have to step back from my thoughts and see the thoughts going across my consciousness. In meditation, for example, one can get into a state where you see the thoughts arising. So I see, you know, I can watch my own thoughts. Here's a thought about, oh, I've got to get the car mended, or there's a thought, when's dinner, or, you know, so all these thoughts arise, but I'm separate from them. So I can watch and observe thoughts coming and going across what I call the screen of my consciousness. And sometimes a thought that goes across, I think, that's not my thought, that's come from somewhere else. And that might be a spirit person's thought, right? Or might be something from my unconscious, from a part of myself that I'm not aware of. But you learn through years of mediumship to distinguish the thoughts that come to you from the spirit world. This is actually what is a form of telepathy from the spirit world. They're giving us thoughts by telepathy. And the way I prove that those thoughts are not mad thoughts or thoughts from my unconscious or deep memories or some disassociated part of myself, the way I prove that they're not those things is by telling someone that information, and they can say, my God, how did you know that? That's my granddad you're describing, and yes, that was his name, and yes, that was what he did, and yes, he was a gardener like you said, and yes, he owned an ice cream van, or whatever. You know, you get pictures and images and thoughts, and it all comes as a flood, and when it happens, you cease suddenly seeing your thoughts and their thoughts. It just all then streams through, and you give a whole mass of information. You just have to run with it when it comes through from the spirit, once the connection's been made. And that's how mediums work. And good mediumship will tell you lots of things about the person as a person. They'll tell you about their personality, how they died, evidence, you know, pictures from their life and stories and little things that nobody else could possibly know. So what's it like for the spirit world when they're doing this, you know? So now imagine you're dead, right? Now you've gone to the spirit world and you can see everybody grieving for you and talking about you, and you can pick up and see all these things, but you're in a different kind of plane now. You're in a different level of reality. You don't have a physical body, so no matter how much you try, you can't influence the world around in the material plane. You can't shout out words. You can't pick up objects, you know. Or if you can, it would take you'd have to do it in a completely different way with a huge amount of effort even to lift a feather. You know, you'd have to use what they call psychokinesis, you know, mind over matter. And with my stomach, it's more a question of mind over batter. But, you know, you would have to expend enormous amounts of energy. But, you know, there you are in the spirit world. You're aware of the world outside. You know, you've only just gone to the spirit world, so it's all new, all unfamiliar to you. The material world you're conscious of. How do you get your message through? So you might, for example, start to become aware that you can start to feel the feelings of these people that are grieving for you. Not just their words, but you'll be picking up the feelings. You'll be picking up all the grief and all the upset and all the happy memories about you. And they'd be all thinking these things and you'd be picking them up. They'd be coming into the field of your awareness like your own thoughts, you know. You'll be open to these things. So how do you get back? Oh, I know. I'll send my thoughts back to them, and you might send a loving thought to someone there, and someone might say, oh, I've just had a lovely feeling that I've just connected with so-and-so who's just died, you know, but that's about as much as they can get, because, you know, telepathy works. I mean, when they've done experiment with telepathy, it works on a different level. In people doing telepathic experiments, it's very difficult, for example, to put words across and numbers across. That's why things like Zener cards, which, you know, the cards with the pictures of circles and wiggly lines and stars and things, those Zener cards are not a very effective way of doing telepathy, although they do use them and they've had some good results. But it's feelings that people pick up. So when they've done telepathy experiments, for example, they've had people watch videos, you know, a person in another room trying to pick up the telepathy, you can pick up the feelings of those videos. Oh, they're watching something really frightening at the moment, or they're watching something really relaxed, you know. It's as if telepathy works on a sort of emotional level somehow. It doesn't work with all the words and verbals. It's like, you know, some people talk about the split brain, that the brain has two hemispheres. One for all the logical stuff, one for all the intuitive stuff. And mediumship perhaps works on the intuitive stuff, but not on the logical stuff. So, from the spirit side, you're going to have a lot of difficulties, because you're going to be trying to communicate with all these people around you and try to get a message to say, look, I'm all right, I'm all right. But all you can do it is with feelings. And that's how most people get their messages from the spirit world. They get a feeling. And sometimes when they're much more psychically open, for example, when they're asleep and in a dream, when the brain's not rushing around with all its daily thoughts so much, and it's in a peaceful, open state, sometimes the spirit can get through in a dream, because your mind then is much more receptive, much more open to those subtle vibrations that the person in spirit's trying to project to you. But it must be really difficult, isn't it? You imagine. You're in the spirit when you're trying to get all these messages across to say you're okay, and you just can't get through because people's minds are tied up with their daily thoughts. We haven't got any influence over the physical world around us, so you're completely stumped. And then you come across someone who's a medium, right? And a medium has perhaps a differently wired brain or something. I don't know quite how our mediumship works, but we're perhaps a bit more sensitive to our thoughts, a bit like I described that, you know, I'm aware of my thoughts come through me rather than always mine, as it were. That's not mad. I hope it's not mad. It could be, you know. But it's like, you know, I'm aware of thoughts that go across the screen of my consciousness, and then the spirit person can put something across into my mind, and I see it. You know, I just happen to be aware of those type of things, and so when a person comes to see a medium, they suddenly, oh, now here's an opportunity. Because this medium is receptive to the thoughts that the spirit world's giving you. So when the spirit communicates to me, I don't hear a great stream of, oh, tell them I'm doing all right and talk about Arthur Charlie and blah, blah, blah. I don't hear it all as words, because that's not how it comes to me. It comes as thoughts. And those thoughts might have a verbal quality to it. Sometimes I might hear a word amongst it. But if I say to the spirit person, oh, tell me your name, my own unconscious mind will throw a dozen names up at the same time, which get in the way of the real name, you know. But if a name just happens to pop into my head as I'm talking to the person in front of me who's getting the message from spirit, then that will be right 100% all the time, because I haven't let my own thoughts get in the way. because all the time the spirit are giving me information, and my own unconscious chatter is going on the whole time, getting in the way of everything and tripping it all up. It must be terribly frustrating for the poor old spirit person trying to communicate. They say, oh, right, tell them my name's Mac. And I go, you just had a Big Mac? No. Bought a Mac, an Apple Mac computer? No. Bought a raincoat? No, Mac? No. Is his name Mac? Oh, yeah. Oh, you know, because my own thoughts all the time, messing it up until I'm completely messed the message up. But sometimes, you know, you'll be given a message to someone and he says, Mac, is that his name? You know, you suddenly know it. So it's not as easy as the skeptics would say that, you know, oh, give us the lottery numbers. Not that easy, because I'm getting impressions all the time, and other mediums the same, and we all get it in different ways. And a lot of people that claim to be mediums aren't in the slightest bit a medium. They're making it up. They just think they are. And very few people are mediums in this world. 1 in a million, I would say, is a medium, to be honest. That's not me showing off, that is just the case. I mean, we don't choose to be mediums, it's thrust upon us. But at the same time, there are good and bad mediums. It's a bit like a violin. You know, a great virtuoso might be able to play the violin and bring a beautiful music through. But if they're playing a broken violin, even the greatest violinist can't play a broken instrument. It just come across a load of screeches. And the medium is like that violin. You know, if I'm a properly attuned instrument, then hopefully the spirit world can put messages through me without them being distorted by my own thoughts, my own feelings. If I'm able to step aside, if I'm able to train myself, you know, this is why I feel, you know, I'm talk about train myself in the mystical arts of, for example, meditation and focus and concentration and things like that, you know, and being able to observe the stream of consciousness that goes across my mind and so forth. There's so much one has to do. You can't just suddenly claim to be a medium just because you get a few impressions and you get bits and pieces, you know. And you have to train the mediumship itself so that you get the understanding of what the spirit communicator's trying to say. Like, for example, the easiest things for the spirit world to get across to us are what we call clairsentience. That is, the sense of their personality would be a clairsentient thing. The physical conditions when they pass, so I might sort of feel a pressure on my chest and I think, yeah, this person's trying to give me a feeling of heart or lung or something like that, or they might make me suddenly feel angry, and I say, oh, was this an angry person? You see, they're doing it on that subtle level, what we call clairsentience. And that's like the string. And onto that string we put the other pearls, the bits that are really startling, which would be the clairvoyance and the clairaudience. So the clairvoyance might be pictures. So I might say, oh, hang on, I see, what would you say? Oh, I see a tattoo. You know, he's got a tattoo on his arm and it says Claire, right? Oh, yes. So that would be I would say that was more of like a clairaudience, a clairvoyant thing. You've seen a picture. Or the clairaudience, which would be the words, and you say, oh, he lived at 22 Chapman Road. Oh, how did you know that? Because that just happened to come in. But you need that sensing first, you know, that string of the clairsentience before you can give all these other bits. So from the spirit side, it's a real difficult job. They can't just come in and give us a load of information. You've got to gradually kind of almost build it up. And then on top of that, there's not only my mind's all in the way, you know, and there's this difficulty of communicating between the two worlds, but there's the sitter as well, because if they're not open and their energy's all blocked, you can't get anything through for them. Because the problem, what happens is, you know, it might not be because they're skeptical. Skeptical people are hard to get through because they're armoured. You know, you're not going to get through. You can't get into that flow with someone like that. They go, oh, facts now. You know, it's not going to work like that. You know, but with someone that's open and receptive, yes, that whole procedure that I've just described happens. But then someone might be really in so much grief that they can't. You can't get through that grief to give the information. Not that they don't want to be in touch with the spirit, well, they're perhaps too desperate, you know, and that subtle process of observing these incredibly subtle thoughts that come into me can't be projected or can't be understood. And then sometimes you'll find that someone that might be really grieved, for example, might suddenly be given one fact. You say, you're just lucky. You get one bit. Was his name Albert? Oh yes, it was. And you suddenly feel the whole energy sort of just open up like that, and then suddenly you can give them the whole lot because they've opened. But until that point, it's another barrier to communication. So we've got the medium is a problem, the sitter is a problem, and the poor old spirit world, they have problems too. They might not know how to do it either, you see, because they're going to have to be organised on the spirit side by the spirit guides and helpers, as we call them. They'll be sort of lined up and helped. So a higher spirit will come with that spirit, communicating spirit, and help them to get through. So right now, you've got to keep with him, do this, get your mind thoughts. They'll be helping and guiding the whole process from that side. Whew. So with all that, if we can get, I would say, the slightest bit of really good proof through, like he lived at this address, or or some one fact that's really positive that could not be possibly known by any amount of guesswork and generalities like the alleged mediums do. If it was something really specific, if you get one fact, one really, really powerful fact, then that is an absolute miracle, because it gives proof of life after death. And like I say, there is just so many barriers in the way. There's so many difficulties to overcome that getting just a few facts through is very difficult. Getting a load of facts through, what a wonderful thing that is. What a wonderful, humbling experience it is to be able to give somebody real evidence that the person that they've been crying over and grieving about and in pain and stopped going through life and unable to move forward, you can suddenly give them just that little bit of information that lets them know that death is not the end. Then that is truly one of the greatest miracles of all time, I think. Jane and I now do our spiritual work for our foundation. All the profits that come from things like our conferences and theatres and workshops and all those exciting things now go into this foundation, which ultimately has the long-term plan of building centres in the UK and maybe around the world one day. But meanwhile, we've been doing a lot of direct spiritual work with it. We've been going out, feeding people in India, giving to the destitute, giving to beggars. We've helped feed schools, helped orphanages, and we've even given cows to older people that have no other form of income. So mediumship can change your life, but it can also help people directly in the world. So go to the links at the end and find out all about what Jane and I are trying to do. And you can do a lot just by sharing these videos on social media. Help us get the word out. Help us to do something really good in this world. Click on this picture of me to subscribe to our channel and see all of our latest videos as soon as they're published. Or click on this next video for more of our stuff.